Joining us now via Skype, Democratic strategist Ben Wikler. Ben, it's always a delight to have you here on America's Forum. Thanks so much for your time.
It's great to be with you, JD.
This whole notion of what is political and what is straight public policy, when Nancy says, hey, they're trying to make this a partisan issue, is she basically setting up the rationale to avoid sending anyone at all to the committee, saying it's just a partisan witch hunt?
I think the point that the former speaker, the minority leader, is making about the situation, we all agree that Benghazi was a tragedy. 4 brave Americans died, and it's something that all of us regret happening. But it's not a scandal. We've now had 4 major investigations, 8 investigations in total. We've had 13 congressional hearings, 50 briefings, 25,000 pages of documents, and they've all come up with 0 cases of intentional wrongdoing. So what's this really about? This is about politics in its rawest form. It's a distraction from the lack of a plan on healthcare and jobs and the stuff people really care about. I think what Speaker Pelosi is speaking to is that this is a situation where people are kicking up dust and then calling it smoke and then spending millions of dollars and countless hours looking for fire where there is none.
Marsha Blackburn was on earlier from the Republican side, and she engaged in a little historical analysis and set up this theory. She said, imagine during Watergate, if Howard Baker, who was the ranking Republican from Tennessee on that select committee, and Fred Thompson, who later became a senator, but at that time was the Republican legal counsel to the Watergate Select Committee, imagine if they had said, we're not going to participate in a partisan witch hunt. History would have been very different. And I know you've recited some of the oversight that goes on because of the differing jurisdictions within the Congress, but really, isn't there, in terms of oversight and putting this to bed and offering the administration arguments and the Democratic point of view, isn't there really an obligation on the part of the minority to be involved in the select committee?
I think that it actually doesn't matter whether the minority gets involved in the select committee or not, because we know what they're going to find. This has been so extensively investigated. It's been investigated by Congress, by Republican-led investigators. It's been investigated by the Accountability Review Board. We have the facts. We have all of this information, and each new piece of evidence winds up pointing to the same thing, that there was incompetence that night, that there was tragedy, and that there was no scandal. There's no Watergate here. This is really a lot more like the kind of thing that happens in unfortunate situations where the systems fail. And we can keep investigating that, or we can exercise the kind of oversight that we would love Congress to be exercising. I mean, right now there's this scandal with the VA hospitals in Phoenix. That's something that I would love for the Republicans and the Democrats to be intensively investigating. That's important.
Well, it is important, and if time permits, I'd like to get to that, since I served on that committee, and obviously that happened in the state I represented in the Congress. But I'm just wondering, because you're a political strategist, as you were offering your thoughts there, we saw some file footage of Secretary of State Hillary Clinton addressing a question from Wisconsin freshman Senator Ron Johnson, the infamous line, "What difference does it make?" Politically, would there not be an upside for Secretary Clinton to have a do-over to get that line out of the minds of Americans if she is poised to run for president, to get a chance to offer more of her story in perhaps a more sanguine and politically successful way?
There's a group of people that wake up and they think about Benghazi. They eat lunch and they're thinking about Benghazi, and they go to sleep and they're thinking about Benghazi. And that group of people is Republican operatives. The general American public is thinking about things like, how can I get a job? How can I get a higher wage? How can I get access to health care if I'm in a state where a Republican governor has blocked expansion of Medicaid? Those are the issues people are clamoring to hear about. And every moment that we spend as a country rehashing the same set of facts that we've established about what happened on that tragic night in Benghazi is a day when we haven't moved on to address the more crucial issues facing the nation. I think this is a distraction. And I think, if Hillary is spending her time in front of the committee, if we have Department of Defense employees who are, instead of focusing on our nation's defense, they're preparing for additional, beyond the 50 briefings they've already given, for additional briefings for the select committee, then that's just a waste of government resources that, I think both of us would like to spend as judiciously as possible on the stuff that's most urgent.
So the murder of an American ambassador, the first murder of an ambassador overseas, if memory serves, since the 1980s, essentially is old news, regrettable though it is. It does not merit an investigation from your point, and I tell you what, I'm resisting the temptation to get into a full-fledged debate on this because I want to get your point. Let me come back to what may happen. Pete Hoekstra was with me.
Let me speak to that for a second.
Okay, very quick. Go ahead.
It is an unspeakable tragedy that the ambassador was killed and the other 3 brave Americans who died that night. That is an unspeakable tragedy. And I think that's something that all of us across this country share. My grandfather was a diplomat. This is something that, I felt personally. And the people who serve around the world, who serve this nation, deserve the highest protection. And that is why it is crucial that we get the information, and we have gotten the information about this. At this point, the question is where could this go?
Ben, let me ask you this. We've got less than a minute. I appreciate what you're saying. We've got less than a minute. 7 Democrats voted in favor of this select committee. The way the resolution is drafted, as I understand it, if Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to send Democrats, the Speaker can go to some members of the Democratic caucus and invite them. There's going to be pressure on 5 of those 7 to come along and join this committee, is there not?
They'll have to make their decision, but at the end of the day, what matters is the issues people care about: healthcare, job.
I appreciate your insights, Ben Wikler. As always, we may come at this from different points of view, but that makes American politics so interesting. And we do have a point of unanimity on the tragedy of the fate of the ambassador and the 3 other Americans. Your thoughts on this we invite. America's Forum is coming right back.